welcome back to Sports Time HU. I am your host, Fernando. Joined with me today is my great co-host, Keith. Keith, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Fernando. How are you?
Pretty good. My Patriots finally got a win.
Yeah, finally. It was a good win too. It wasn't the greatest game, but it was a very Patriots game, I think.
It's definitely a very big Patriots game. I actually had the Steelers winning that game. I thought the Steelers were actually going to beat the Patriots, so they definitely were one of my surprises of the week.
Yeah.
For yourself, the Seahawks, they fell this week.
Yeah, I actually thought they might go out and beat the 49ers, but I was thinking they might beat the Trey Lance-led 49ers. And, that unfortunate injury. And then Jimmy G came in and kind of stole the show. So, I suppose they didn't play overly bad. I thought it was going to be a lot worse than the scoreline once Jimmy G came in, and we lost 27-7. So, it's going to be a rough season for the Seahawks, like I've said many times before. But but we'll just kind of have to move on from that one and see what they can do this weekend against the Falcons.
Yeah, and how about those Bengals, huh?
How about those Bengals? I mean, they get beaten by the Cooper Rush-led Cowboys. Bad start for the Bengals. I think the play calling's been terrible. Zach Taylor needs to hold his hands up here. The offensive line's terrible. Last year, they knew they had a bad offensive line, so they were getting the ball out quick and, not afraid to throw the ball long, get Burrow moving in the pocket. But this year, it's like now they're afraid to throw the ball long, even though they're meant to have this great O-line, which they don't. It's just as bad as last year, exactly. And then the defense kind of let them down last week too. It's an interesting start. They have the Jets this week. They need to pick up a win there. If the Jets get a win against the Bengals this week, I think their season's in big trouble, and so will Zach Taylor's job be.
I mean, the Jets, they came back. A lot of comebacks, which we'll dive right into the news and notes around the league. And I mean, there was, again, like last week, there was a lot of close games. But then this week, the 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock games were outstanding. I mean, 10 out of the 16 games were within one score this week.
Yeah, tight games again. I mean, it's good for football. It's good for watching. No, I suppose last night's were a bit of a blowout. But in terms of Sunday games, like you said, a lot of tight games, a lot of games coming down right to the wire. We had the Cardinals game go into overtime this week as well, which is showing that there's way more competitive teams this year at the top, I think, as well. So it's definitely good for football.
Yeah, I mean, that was actually I mean, amazing. I mean, what the Miami and Baltimore game, probably the game of the week.
That was crazy. Baltimore looked like they had that sewn up a long time in, and then all of a sudden the big comeback from Miami, and the speed Miami have with Hill and Waddle is just crazy.
Yeah, it was the first time that a duo wide receiver had over 170 yards receiving from both players and also 2 touchdowns, which was absolutely insane because I think at one point it was 35-14. Baltimore decided to turn into the Atlanta Falcons for last game. And I mean, I was saying to myself, I was like, oh, if Baltimore scores another touchdown, they might as well just put the subs in. And then that totally did not happen. No,
and the kind of scary thing is that can happen again for Miami. Tyreek Hill and Waddle are that fast, and if Tua is going to play as well as he did, they could easily have, another 170, 200 game between them. Like, it could be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that second half absolutely was crazy to see. I mean, absolutely amazing. One of the other things is the Giants. Hello? New York Giants, 2-0 for the first time since 2016. I mean, let's be honest. The Giants are the Giants. They're still not going to do as great. They're not going to finish the season as great. Maybe they will surprise, but out of all the undefeated teams, I really think right now the Giants are the least favored to consistently go undefeated.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, Daboll's come in there and he's did a good job. He's definitely, I think the defense was never, I don't think it was the worst in the league. It was kind of middle of the road, and he's kind of shored that up a bit. Also, you have a fit Saquon Barkley who looks back to his best. Now, can he stay fit and healthy? Who knows? But while he is fit and healthy, it takes a lot of pressure off Daniel Jones and the wide receivers who, haven't clicked over the last couple of years.
Yep.
So I'm excited for them. The Giants have always been a solid team. And, I've got a few friends who are Giants fans and they're happy as it is at the moment. But I think once the big key for them is keeping Saquon Barkley fit.
Yeah, I mean, Saquon Barkley, How much did he score last week? Do you know off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Yeah, I mean, Barkley's been an interesting fantasy asset. I mean, again, I stayed away from every share I could possibly with him. Also, Christian McCaffrey I've stayed away from, but he kind of salvaged his way last game. And then Michael Thomas also kind of wasn't doing good until the very end, where fourth quarter he got some fantasy points to salvage his start.
Yeah.
But going to Tampa Bay, Cole Beasley just came out. Cole Beasley is signing a contract to the practice squad for Tampa Bay to be expected for him to be on the active roster very, very soon. They basically have no wide receivers right now. I mean, Mike Evans just suspended one game after the fight with Marshawn Lattimore. Of course, we kind of expected that. We saw him get suspended, I think back in 2017 it was, where he again had a fight with Marshawn Lattimore. So Tampa Bay really struggling with their wide receiver core.
Yeah, Cole Beasley is interesting for these. I think he's a very solid slot receiver. Did well with Josh Allen down in Buffalo. So I think he's going to another, obviously, top quarterback in Tom Brady there. So I'd imagine he'll be elevated straight into that first team, and you'll probably see him on the weekend out there. And who knows, it could be a sneaky pickup off the waiver wires for people.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen him do great in Buffalo, like you mentioned, and who knows, he could again be a sneaky one. Maybe a streamer of the week, possibly. Who knows?
Who knows?
But yeah, Mike Evans, make sure to keep him on the bench. Don't start him this week. He is suspended. Did Lattimore ever get suspended? Because
no,
I don't. And he
didn't get. I think he might have got suspended in 2017, but he didn't get suspended this time around.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of started a little bit pushing and shoving with Tom Brady, Leonard Fournette, and everything, and then Mike Evans was like, "Nah, don't mess with my man."
Yeah, Mike Evans doesn't like Lattimore anyways, but it's the whole kind of jump into the defense of the quarterback that always happens.
Yeah, so you got to always protect your players, but sometimes maybe not to an extent where you hurt your team more.
Yeah, Mike needs to stop hurting my fantasy team.
Yeah, I didn't draft any of those receivers.
No,
I actually wanted Russell Gage until who was it? Who just got on there?
Julio?
Yes, Julio. Oh my goodness. Yeah, once Julio got there, I was like, I'll pass on Russell Gage. So
yeah. I mean, Julio just needs to stay fit. Russell Gage he'd be all right fitness-wise, but Julio looked good week one and then obviously missing week two. It's kind of what he's been doing in the last few years.
Yep. So that'll be interesting to see what they will do. Someone that maybe isn't some happy news for you anyways, and unfortunate news, of course, is Trey Lance out for the remainder of the season with a broken ankle. Obviously, it's unfortunate for Trey Lance and any Trey Lance believers, Keith.
Yes.
but whatchamacallit, I was not a Trey Lance fan going into the season. I unfortunately am going to be holding him in one league that I unfortunately still have him.
Trade him to me.
Yeah, but now you want
I immediately pulled out my trade that was in there with you when you went down. So I was like,
see, here's the thing. I feel like anyone that like finds those trades and then all of a sudden that person that you're sending gets injured, I feel like it's messed up to just accept it right after. Because I noticed when he went out, I went to the trade to look at like what I could have gotten, and I was like, man, I could have got these players, but then I didn't, of course, accept it because I think it's messed up. I mean,
a lot of people would have. It's a good thing to do, I suppose, but a lot of people would accept it, especially when, say, I left the trade there sitting for so long. It's kind of on me then. That's how I pulled it out.
Yeah, I mean, see, has that ever happened to you where you had a trade out and then all of a sudden, bam, someone accepts the trade after the person gets injured?
Not that I can remember, to be honest, but I think if someone's going to leave it there that long and not, reject it or cancel it, when the player gets injured or gets suspended or whatever it is, I think it's, if it gets accepted, it's on the guy who left it there, especially if it was me, like it was me offering you this time. So it would be on me, so I canceled it. But it's never happened. I don't really. You could have that argument. You'll probably have to go to the commissioner of your fantasy league.
Yeah,
it's a hard one, really. You're not going to please both sides there.
No, exactly. I mean, unless you're really rebuilding and you're a true Trey Lance believer, then sure, maybe it works out for you. But I feel like it's just so wrong to just do that. Like, obviously, it helps your team because you're getting rid of someone that's going to be out for the season. But I don't believe in that. But Keith, we'll keep talking about Trey Lance and that trade going forward. Maybe we'll get a deal done.
That's some stage,
But the biggest news of the day probably for me, of course, is Jimmy G season is underway. Jimmy G is back. He's going to help San Francisco. I think they'll definitely make the playoffs now. They are 100% going into the playoffs. I actually will move the San Francisco 49ers up the rankings a little bit only because of that, because of Jimmy G. Of course, the rankings will be coming out tomorrow on Instagram. But he now will get a bonus of $250,000 for every game that he plays over 25% snaps. And if he also wins, he will get an additional $100,000. So if you average the rest of the games, including last week, he would be getting $5,250,000 in bonuses.
It's crazy. It's crazy. They really didn't think they were going to be playing Jimmy G this year. The 49ers it didn't matter how bad Trey Lance was. That all sounds like Trey Lance was going to be the guy for the whole season, bar an injury, which obviously happened. So it's just crazy. Very nice money for Jimmy G. Ever fancy wise, I think it's very good for Debo and George Kittle coming back because, we know what he did with them. It's a short pass game. And that'll suit Debo. That'll suit George Kittle. So I think it's uptick for them guys if you got them in your leagues. Jimmy G, probably a guy to go get on the waivers if you want. If you're struggling, in your 2 QB leagues or your super flex, a guy to get. I mean, I'm not going to burst my gut on the fab if I'm spending a fab on him, but I think he's a solid guy going forward.
Yeah, Jimmy G definitely. Especially in super flex, if he's still in your waiver wire, I'm spending all of my fab for him because quarterbacks are so hard to really find. And Jimmy G was a serviceable quarterback last season, so expect that again this season. We have a question from Matthew Bona. Should I trade Curtis Samuel for Cordell Patterson, PPR league? Well, I'm going to definitely say absolutely yes. If you're getting Curtis Samuel and you're getting rid of Cordell Patterson, this is the best week to do it. I'll be talking a little bit about Tyler Algier coming up for possibly a streamer of the week. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But I 100% am in on all of the Washington wide receivers, and I'm out on Cordell Patterson.
So should I trade Curtis Samuel because he's going to be getting Patterson? No, did it right. Yeah.
No.
So don't do it. No, I'm in on Curtis Samuel. I really like what's going on. It looks like Wentz is spreading the ball around there between McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel. I think I brought it up last week on the pod saying, Curtis Samuel can also be used out of the backfield too. So you have that. So Cordell Patterson hasn't shown enough for me. I think his season was last year. I know you're big on this week anyways. You probably talk about Algier, but I'm in on Samuel. I want the Samuel side.
Yeah, honestly, Curtis Samuel absolutely been amazing. And I think you can get a lot more than Cordell Patterson for him. I mean, Curtis Samuel, if you are in need of a tight end, go get a solid tight end. Running backs as well. I think Cordell Patterson should not be targeted at all.
I mean, there's an argument to say here, if you really want a running back and someone's got James Robinson or something like that, go get James Robinson. Look what he's done the first 2 weeks.
Definitely someone who's been our surprise of the year, I think, so far. Maybe even possibly you could argue he's a comeback player of the year.
Yeah. I mean, somebody that has Curtis Samuel is probably going to try and look for more than what he's probably worth, just because of what he's done in 2 games. He's not worth a whole lot, but he's been good this year. I think you could get more than Patterson in that case, There you go. Which I think James Robinson's a good fit. It's probably, I don't know where the value is there, but it's probably somewhere in and around that, which is not too bad. James Robinson's been very solid so far.
Yeah, I mean, I'd also go with James. I think James Robinson is a great pick. Derrick Henry, maybe possibly someone you could target because of how bad he's been doing. Last 2 games, definitely bust for both weeks. He's mentioning that he has Swift, Gibson, Carter, and Breece Hall. I don't like that you have Breece Hall and Michael Carter because I don't like holding 2 running backs back-to-back on the same team because obviously Breece Hall and Michael Carter have been doing good the past couple of weeks, but it's going to be 1 week where it's going to be really good or 1 week really bad. Someone I actually wouldn't mind targeting is A.J. Dillon. for Curtis Samuel.
AJ Dillon's very interesting. Yeah, there's another good one. Yeah, AJ Dillon's a good one to target. I'm on the same boat as you there. I don't like having Carter and Hall. Only way that benefits you is one of them goes down for the rest of the year, and then obviously you got the starter, but you're kind of capping yourself there on the limit, because it's very, very rare that both of them will go off on 1 week. So Swift and Gibson's pretty good. Swift's looked great, even though he was apparently like limited touches last week. I think you're pretty solid there. AJ Dillon's is a guy I really like. Whether Curtis Samuel's enough to get it done, I'm not sure, but he's definitely a guy you could target and see if you could work out a deal.
Yeah, I mean, James Robinson, the RB6, AJ Dillon, the RB, I think RB 14 roughly. So I think those are two guys that you could definitely get for to get rid of Curtis Samuel.
Yep, if that's what you're looking to do.
And you could even package maybe Michael Carter or Breece Hall to even get a better running back. Who knows?
Yep, I'd see what you think and who you like better there between Carter and Breece Hall, and keep that guy, and then maybe throw him in with a packet, and then you could get someone better. Maybe go after one of the top guys and see what happens.
Exactly. Let's get back into the news and notes. Buffalo Bills cornerback Dane Jackson suffered a very scary injury. He was immobilized and transported in an ambulance after suffering a neck injury. He's been now released from the hospital with no major injury, which is something really great news. We've seen it in Pittsburgh happen before. And I mean, Dane Jackson, really great to see that he's out of the hospital.
Yeah, scary looking incident last night when we seen the ambulance coming on straight away. We knew it wasn't good, but it's great to hear that he's good.
Yeah, and what do you think? Buffalo Bills, are they the best in the league?
They definitely look, I think, so far on offense, on defense, the most solid team. Probably maybe the most Super Bowl ready team, I think, out of the first two games. It's early days. You're still going to have the Chiefs. I think the Chargers, if Herbert is okay and going to be out there next week, I think they're going to have a say this year. Also the Rams, they're not going to go down without a fight. They are the reigning champions. And maybe the 49ers have a squeak there too now. There's a lot of teams, as of 2 games in, that have a chance. But I think Buffalo, look the best so far.
Yeah, for sure. I like Buffalo. I have them ranked as the best team in the league, and I have them winning the Super Bowl in my preseason predictions. So are we shocked? No. I mean, a lot of people mentioned that they would possibly go all the way. But let's get into our bust of the week, and we're going to even talk about Brent, who's coming in, our blog editor for our website. Time to worry about Henry. Well, funny you talk about the king like that. Very disrespectful, but I'm about to disrespect him because Derrick Henry, is time to hit the panic alarm. Last 2 games under 9 points, 13 attempts, 25 yards, 1 touchdown last week. He salvaged his game last week with that 1 touchdown. You take away that touchdown, he's only scoring you 2.5 fantasy points. The question for you, Keith, is has Father Time caught up to him?
I'm going to say no. And I'll tell you why. Because we've seen Henry over years. He's been a slow starter. It's been a slow burner. And some people, you have him in your fancy team and is thinking, I need to get rid of him. I need to trade him. Nobody wants him. You got to hold. And then all of a sudden you hold on till week 4, 5, 6. And he goes off in one of them weeks. And then everybody's looking for Henry. So I'm going to say no. I do think he hasn't had the greatest start. I agree. Tough matchup this week against the Bills last night, so I don't really fault them a lot for that. The whole Titans offense didn't take. Tannehill didn't look great. I thought Traylon Burks actually did all right for what he got. But I wouldn't worry about him yet because he has been known in the past to be a slow starter.
See, yeah, I agree with you on that. And I very much think that he can come back, have a bounce back in the next couple of weeks, especially facing the Raiders this week. Definitely could bounce back. But the concern to me is his snap percentage. His snap percentage is 46% last week. His backup running back, Hassan Haskins. Who is that guy, you ask? Well, he has more snap percentage than Derrick Henry, the king. So Haskins had about 5.2 fantasy points. He had more rushing yards than Derrick Henry and also caught a reception. And I mean, we saw the other running back, I think it was Dontrell Hilliard, I think it was. He got injured last week, so he wasn't in last week. But I think it's time to hit the panic alarm for Derrick Henry.
Ooh, there we go. You got mixed views. Some people might panic, some people might hold. We'll see what happens.
I mean, for people who drafted where Henry was drafted, you're probably going to hold him, especially if you're like someone trying to get rid of Curtis Samuel. You could try and get Derrick Henry for cheap, but most likely the people are going to want more for Derrick Henry.
Yeah, they're still going to want more, even though he hasn't started great.
Matthew coming back with Curtis Samuel question. What if I tried Samuel and Carter for Henry and Myers? So I'm guessing Henry's Derrick Henry, since we were talking about him, and Jacoby Myers. See, here's the thing. As a Patriots fan, I don't like any fantasy players on the Patriots. I love Jacoby Myers. Don't get me wrong. Love him a lot. But Jacoby Myers, he's either going to be really good or really bad. It kind of just depends. He's like a solid wide receiver 2, maybe wide receiver 3 in some weeks. Of course, last week he did very great. Nelson Aguilar did also good. Derrick Henry, again, the odds of you trying to trade Curtis Samuel and Michael Carter for King Henry and Jacoby Myers, I have a feeling the guy's not going to accept it.
He might accept it for just Henry.
Yeah.
As take it as a buy low. I mean, you're taking Myers off his good week. I'm going to talk about Myers later on in the show. Because I think I like him more than you, and I brought him up a lot last year too. Yeah. But you can try. I would say always go high and go more than what you think. So you can try, and if you rejects it, then take out Myers and just go for Samuel and Carter for Henry. That'd be nice.
And he also mentioned that he has Jamar Chase and AJ Brown, and also DJ Moore and Darnell Mooney.
You don't need Myers.
Yeah, you definitely don't need Myers. Definitely go out and maybe get a King Henry, or I mean, if you're going to package Curtis Samuel, Michael Carter, I mean, even Najee Harris could be a sneaky one.
Yeah, just going back to what you said, Darnell Mooney, there's a guy you need to hit the panic button on because of how the Bears, just keep running the ball even though they're way behind and don't want to throw it. So the Bears offensive guys, Cole Kmet, Darnell Mooney, start hitting the panic button on them guys.
Yeah, and if you're starting only 2 wide receivers, then Jamar Chase and AJ Brown are good. If you're starting 3, maybe Myers could be a guy to get for a flex position, but if you're starting 2 wide receivers, Chase and AJ Brown are your 2 solid receivers that you don't need to move.
Well, it was DJ Moore as well, right?
Yeah, DJ Moore, but he could if you start 2 receivers, DJ Moore in the flex.
You're gonna just use Myers on bye weeks when they start coming up and stuff like that. I don't think it's a need. I think you're right to go after the running back position. That's a need. I think you can try Samuel. I think the realistic one is Samuel Carter for Henry and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, you could easily check out that. Ethan Duncan has a question. Should I trade Dalvin Cook away for Jonathan Taylor and Joe Burrow? I had Dak, so I need a QB. I'm 0 for 2 in PPR.
Dalvin Cook and Debo for Jonathan Taylor and Joe Burrow. Okay.
I mean, I'm not actually a big believer in Debo, but Debo obviously very surprised me last year. Finishing wide receiver 3. I like Jonathan Taylor. I actually like him a lot. If this is super, I don't know. I don't know if I'm giving up Debo and Dalvin just for JT and Joe Burrow.
I need to know is it 1 QB or not.
Yeah.
Can you let us know that, and then I'll be able to give you a better answer.
If it's 2 QB, then I think I'm fine doing this deal. I think it's a win-win for both sides. Joe Burrow and Jonathan Taylor. You get the RB1. Joe Burrow hasn't looked that great, but again, Joe Burrow, obviously you'll see him progress better numbers, especially since you need someone until week 8 at least for Dak Prescott. Dalvin Cook isn't bad. He's mentioning it's a 1 QB league. I would rather keep Dalvin Cook than Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, I'm not a guy that goes after quarterbacks in a 1 QB league because I always find, I imagine this is 10 or 12 team league, unless it's really deep, then okay, you're going to struggle on the waiver wires, but you're going to find guys out there. You might have Derek Carr sitting on the waiver wire. He's going to have good weeks. Kirk Cousins wasn't great last night, but he's going to have his weeks. He's going to have his moments. You can definitely stream the position. I wouldn't go into full panic mode just because Dak is out and you're 0-2. I would say hold Cook and Debo. Like I said earlier on, there's going to be good days ahead for Debo with Jimmy G there. Dalvin Cook, okay, they're throwing the ball more there in Minnesota, but he is going to get better. I wouldn't go full panic mode just to go after for me, you're just going after JT there. Okay, Joe Burrow, whatever you're getting a starting quarterback, but you can get one off the waiver wire.
And not to mention, you mentioned that you have Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is my waiver wire pickup of the week. The last 2 weeks. Last week was him, and he's again my waiver wire pickup because he's available in a lot of leagues. So I honestly like Wentz. I'd start Wentz every week.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, you're gonna find guys in 1 QB leagues if you're in a 10 or 12 league. Just
Jimmy G should be available.
Yeah, just play just stream the position, play the opposition. If if you think they have a good matchup, go get the guy, then drop him, go get another guy. Don't panic just because Dak is out. I'd keep Debo and Cook.
Sebastian has a quick question. Dalvin Cook coming into this question again. Dalvin Cook, Antonio Gibson, and Debo for Jamar, Keenan, James Robinson. Full PPR redraft. This is an interesting one.
Jamar, Chase, Keenan Allen, and James Robinson. If I'll just jump in quick because it's an easy one for me. If Keenan Allen's not like a multi-week now injury and he's good to go from next week, I want the Jamar Keenan side. There's too much upside there for me with, you're going to have Jamar is going to have great weeks. We know that. We already seen what Keenan Allen and Justin Herbert can do. And James Robinson's interesting, very interesting. What have we seen so far? I mean, Antonio Gibson, his upside's going to be capped with what they have there when Brian Robinson comes back.
Exactly.
Debo, I love Debo. Cook's a slow burner, but I still want Jamar and Keenan on that team.
Yeah, I'm taking Jamar.
It's full PPR too. So.
Full PPR. James Robinson also does catch footballs. So I mean, let's be real. I like James Robinson. I do like Antonio Gibson, but again, like you said, he's going to be capped with Brian Robinson coming back soon. Keenan Allen, can't go wrong with him once he comes back healthy. And Jamar Chase is Jamar Chase. You can't go wrong with him either. So, Keith, let's finish up the bust of the week. Who is your bust of the week? Is it Pity City?
It is Pity City. Kyle Pitts for the Atlanta Falcons. Man, if you have Kyle Pitts on your team, you must be sweating right now. I'm thinking where you took him in your drafts, in the one picks in the first 3 rounds, you're in trouble so far. You're in big trouble because you stop getting yourself, a high-end wide receiver, a high-end running back, depending on the league, probably a quarterback for Kyle Pitts, and he has done nothing through 2 weeks. So I think, you can start panicking, maybe give him 1 more week and see, but, him and Cole Kmet were my guys. I was thinking of busts, but where you got Cole Kmet in your drafts, like round 10 plus, it's not really hurting your team. Kyle Pitts is 100% hurting your team. If you're getting wins with Kyle Pitts putting up like 3 points, well, you must have a really good team and you're doing well and fair play. But I'd say a lot of people are taking L's because of Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Pitts, Marcus Grant was on the show from NFL Network Fantasy, and he mentioned he was a big Pitts believer. A lot of people are Pitts believers, but with a new quarterback coming in, Marcus Mariota, you just don't know what's going to happen. We know Mariota is targeting Drake London a lot more than Kyle Pitts, and of course, it's Pity City because now people are trying to hit the panic button on him, and in redraft leagues, he may start to go to the waivers.
I think the reason why he won't go into waivers is because I don't think people will actually drop him for where they actually took him in their draft. If he has another week like this, you're just kind of wasting a space there. Probably are, but people are just going to take the chance and hold. Like, put him in you're probably better off doing a low trade, getting something back from him than just dropping him, because he'll go on the waivers and everybody will jump in to try and get him. That's what's going to happen because they believe in the talent. The problem is, I like Kyle Pitts. It's just where he goes in drafts is I don't like. So that's why I'm always out, technically probably on the position more than just, Kyle Pitts. Mm-hmm. But I think it's serious panic mode if he has another bum week in week 3.
Yeah, exactly. Sebastian coming back in with some switches on his trade. So if instead of Dalvin Cook, Antonio Gibson, and Debo, it would be Dalvin Cook, Antonio Gibson, and Devontae for Jamar Chase, Brandon Cooks, and James Robinson. I still want Jamar Chase, Brandon Cooks, and James Robinson.
What if I switch Keenan with Brandon Cooks, or if I keep Keenan in the deal but switch Debo with Devontae?
Either way, I'm still taking Jamar, Brandon Cooks, James Robinson, or Jamar and Keenan and James Robinson. I like Jamar. I think Jamar just wins it. Jamar's just Chase.
Keenan, and you can switch if you keep Keenan, and then you can do what you want. Switch Debo with Devontae. I still go Jamar side as well.
Yeah. Clearly, maybe we're missing something with Dalvin Cook. Leonardo saying thoughts on Dalvin Cook. I mean, Dalvin Cook, is he a buy low? You could mention that maybe that he could be a buy low candidate because he scored about 15 points in week 1, 7 points last week. I have not been in on Dalvin Cook since he came into the league because of injury concerns. God forbid he does have another injury. He's going to be dropped in redrafts maybe, depending on if he has a season-ending injury. But again, he's 27 years old. Running backs, we know, happen right around the 27, 28 age mark where they start to drop in their production. Their production isn't as great because they're used so much. And Dalvin Cook having so many injuries, this could be the year that he's starting to drop his fantasy value.
I think a lot of questions are coming in on Cook because of last night. The game is so fresh in people's, memories. The Vikings got behind early, never really got on top of the game. I thought the Eagles thought Jalen Hurts looked really good. Cooks is going to have more good days in the future. I wouldn't panic. I know a lot of people were talking about Derrick Henry, and it's probably they're saying, well, the similar thing with Dalvin Cook, right? But I, as I said, for Henry, he's a slow starter. Cook necessarily not really. It's more where the Vikings are going with their game plan. They're throwing, they're looking for Jefferson. Look, Thielen he got 7 fantasy points last night. He got good late on just because the ball needed to go somewhere else other than Jefferson because that's where the Eagles defense knew it was going to go.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think the Vikings are going to have games where they're going to be up. I think that offense is high power and Dalvin Cook will have better days ahead. I mean, if it doesn't happen in week 3, you can start putting them on, shopping them and see what happens. But I think I'd hold him and definitely see what has to come in week 3.
Yeah, and if you're looking to trade for him, I'm staying away from him. Again, I mentioned A.J. Dillon. He's a sneaky value, and I think you could get around cheaper value than Dalvin Cook because of Cook's name. Really, that's a lot of people want a lot for Dalvin Cook because they draft him so high versus A.J. Dillon. I actually personally like A.J. Dillon over Dalvin Cook. That's my take.
Would you do A.J. Dillon and Jahan Dotson for Dalvin Cook? There you go.
Yes. Yeah.
I think you can probably get a deal, something like that might be beneficial for your team as a whole. Get a wide receiver and a running back if that's what you're looking to do. If that's what you're out on Cook already, go down that route. Try and get a wide receiver and a running back to replace him.
Exactly. Let's go to the biggest surprises of the week. And Keith, I'll start with you. Who is your guy?
He probably wasn't more of a surprise last week, but it's Greg Dortch, and he's my surprise because he was consistent and he basically did it again. He repeated it. There was a lot of stuff going on in the offseason that this guy looked good, but I didn't have a clue who the name was. I read about it, didn't know who he was, but yeah, with the way the games have gone so far and the Cards being behind, I think it's probably suited Kyler to throw a lot more. And Greg Dortch looks pretty good. So I was kind of surprised that he put back-to-back weeks. It's going to be interesting when we go down the road and Hopkins is back and stuff like that. But he looked pretty good. And I was pleasantly surprised that I went and got him off the waivers already in some of the leagues that have already started to roll out.
Exactly. Let's light the torch for Mr. Dortch. I mean, Greg Dortch is absolutely amazing. Of course, got to get the puns going back. Come on now.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The torch of Dortch he's amazing. 14 fantasy points last week, got in the end zone. Seems like Kyler's liking him a lot. And who knows? I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, his age is getting up there. Of course, he's coming back from suspension. So we're going to really see what is DeAndre Hopkins going to go into. You saw Marquise Brown, AJ Green. There's a lot of receivers in that offense. Rondale Moore, can't forget him. So it's going to be interesting to see. But Greg Dortch has really shown up and proved himself that he can be a reliable guy. So he's definitely a surprise and a guy to keep streaming and possibly pick him up off waivers.
Yep, I agree with all that.
Let's go with my guy, and that's Garrett Wilson. The question is he the next Justin Jefferson? Because this man has absolutely been doing great. He had 14 targets, 8 receptions, 102 yards, and 2 touchdowns, 30.2 fantasy points. He had 8 targets in week 1, and he's currently right around the wide receiver 12. So in all honesty, I like Garrett Wilson a lot. And I mean, I think he should be picked up everywhere. I mean, rookie wide receivers, we've seen in the past, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. A lot of receivers in this draft in particular has also really been doing great, aka like Drake London.
Yeah, I mean, I was checking him out. I think he's 70% owned in a lot of leagues now, so a lot of people catching on after this big week. But how good did Joe Flacco look as well? He rolled back.
He's been amazing.
Roll back the years. I mean, I wouldn't put Zach Wilson in when he's healthy.
No.
If Flacco's going to keep this up, like Flacco is like, he knows father time is not on his side, and he's trying to make a statement out there. But I was really surprised and happy for the Jets to get that win. But Garrett Wilson looked good. Flacco was just, I think there was a comment in the preseason that Wilson really preferred Flacco because his ball placement was so much better than Zach Wilson. Well, paying off now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, clearly Flacco ain't seen any ghosts in on the Jets, but
Exactly.
616 passing yards for Joe Flacco, 5 touchdowns to 1 interception. He had about 30 fantasy points last week.
I mean,
can't complain.
No, not with Joe Flacco. I mean, is it a guy you're going to run out and pick up the waiver wires? No, but it was good to watch.
Yeah. Leonardo coming back in. Should I try and trade Mike Evans, Curtis Samuel for Debo and AJ Dillon? Other teams need wide receivers bad. Mike Evans, I'm not in on. I just stay away from Tampa Bay receivers. Curtis Samuel, I like. If you're getting rid of those two for Debo and AJ Dillon,
yep.
I think you're absolutely winning this deal. So if you haven't sent that trade and he sent you that, you should be smash accepting that.
Yeah, I mean, go do it. That's the only thing to say. Debo and Dillon for Evans and Samuel. It's going to be a tough one maybe to get that done this week with Evans out on suspension unless whoever you're trading with has cover. But yeah, definitely go try and do it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go into the streamers of the week. And I mean, I'll start with myself before we get into yours. Tyler Algier, this is the guy that really you need to stream because of the fact last week for Atlanta, he had 31% snap percentage, 10 attempts, 30 yards. If you look at Cordell Patterson, who we've already mentioned in this episode, 59% snap percentage. So he's still up there in snap percentage, but he only had 10 attempts. He had the same amount of attempts as Tyler Algier. He had 41 yards, so 11 yards more than Tyler, and he had 1 target for 0 receptions. Patterson, I honestly think it's time to hit the panic button. See what happens next week, but I think it might be time to see the panic button come out. Don't hit it maybe just yet, but maybe next week, depending on what Patterson does, maybe it's time to hit that panic button. Keep an eye out for Algier in this next week and see where the percentage of the snaps come from. Does it come from Patterson? Does it come from Algier? Because we could very well see a different running back as a starting running back in Atlanta.
Yeah, he's interesting. The only thing is, it's Marcus Mariota is the quarterback, so he will take some of the the running out of the game. It's a bit like Trey Lance when he was there with the 49ers. So, but yeah, he's interesting this week. I'll be interested to see how it all kind of works out with that backfield.
Exactly. Before we get into your streamer of the week, Sebastian coming back in with Aaron Jones and Pittman for CMC. I'll tell you right now, I'm not a CMC fan, so I'm keeping Aaron Jones and Pittman.
I'm a big CMC guy, so I'm on the CMC.
That doesn't help.
Aaron Jones and Pittman.
You're telling
CMC,
me
you're giving up too much. That's my issue. I would try and trade for CMC because I think he's only going to get better once he stays healthy. He has Mike Williams, Allen Robinson, Myers, and Bateman.
I would get rid of Allen Robinson.
You can do
trade Allen Robinson and maybe package him with Jacoby Myers or even Bateman. Bateman obviously might not get value because he was injured, but I think you should definitely for sure keep Aaron Jones and Pittman.
I definitely think you should keep Pittman. Yeah, I agree with what you said. You should keep both, but you're not going to be able to send away 2 wide receivers and hope to get CMC. So I'd go Aaron Jones and Allen Robinson and keep them. If
you need a running back, I honestly would get rid of Allen Robinson, maybe Jacoby Myers and Bateman, and get a solid running back. I mean, I'm not a CMC guy.
You're just out on CMC, and I'm in on it. So
it's the injury concern. You just don't know. I mean, he hasn't really looked as amazing as we've seen in the past. He struggled.
I think he'll get better. I think it's just the way Baker used him. There's not a whole lot of, they're not like touching it down to him a whole lot. And he's kind of have to generate his own work.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So let's go with your guy. Let's hear it. Let's hear the guy. Let's hear him because I love this guy.
Davis Mills, your guy all year. It's more the matchup play as well. After seeing the Chicago Bears against Green Bay, I kind of let them off the hook on week 1 because it was a weather game. But I mean, if they're just going to run the ball all the time, you know what's coming. Just stop the run. I think the Texans have been very competitive, I suppose is the word, through the 2 games. Davis Mills probably not as great this week, but he's going to have his moments, and he is a guy that you can stream against decent matchups. And I think this week he can have a decent game against the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, Mills didn't look the greatest last week against Denver. He had he didn't have that many points, I would say, but again, he's not a bad streaming option. I've been all in on him. Again, you said best matchup. I mean, he's facing the Bears. That's a good matchup in my opinion. He then goes to face the Chargers, which again, the Chargers could end up being really good matchup for him. He could score some high scoring points there. Then he goes on to face Jacksonville. So, I mean, I like these next 3 matchups for him. Definitely a guy to keep streaming and possibly pick up in the waivers. So Sebastian coming back in, explaining his running back core. He says he also has Najee and James Robinson and ETN. The problem is you have James Robinson and ETN. Yeah, that's the problem. You have James Robinson and ETN. In all honesty, I mean, if you have Najee and James Robinson, I keep those 2 and get rid of ETN. But again, you're not going to get much value for ETN because we know James Robinson is the guy.
I mean,
if this is redraft.
Yeah, if you're going up the CMC, though, I don't think the package, it doesn't matter what wide receiver you put. If you put James Robinson or Etienne with it, you're not going to get CMC. Your biggest chance to get him is what you did, I suppose, with Aaron Jones. But Aaron Jones is selling it too much. The other guy is probably going to jump all over for what he's getting. Najee hasn't had a great start. Now, whether Najee and you probably have to package Pittman, that might be the deal to get done.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you have a really good running back core if you have Aaron Jones and Pittman also on the team. I'd start Aaron Jones and Najee, and then James Robinson at your flex. Your wide receiver starters, Mike Williams, Jacoby Myers, Rashad Bateman, if you have 3 wide receivers. Maybe package Robinson and Pittman. Maybe even also ETN for a top wide receiver.
I don't mind that. I don't mind the whole squad as it is.
Yeah, I don't mind
it. Just depends how much, if you really want CMC. That's what it is. If you really, really want CMC.
Yeah,
I think Najee and Pittman or Najee and Allen Robinson might be the way to go because, like Fernando said, CMC hasn't hit his heights yet, but I think he will.
Exactly, and I think Najee don't hit the panic alarm for him yet.
No, don't. He's getting too much work. He'll be good.
Exactly. So once again, our busts were Derrick Henry, Kyle Pitts. Our surprises, Garrett Wilson, light that torch for Greg Dortch, and then Tyler Algier and Davis Mills are our streamers of the week. Now, what everyone is waiting for, it is time for the waiver wire pickups. Waiver wire pickups. Let's start with the quarterbacks, and I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep it going with me going first here with Carson Wentz being my guy. I mentioned it last week, Carson Wentz, and it's really solidifying how much I'm starting to like him. Last year, I was kind of out on him. This year, I started towards the end of last season. I started to get in on him. And then this year, I'm just absolutely in on him. With a new team, he's actually really showing very well potential in fantasy. Carson Wentz, 56.7% owned in ESPN leagues. Again, we're doing this off ESPN, who is less than 70% owned, 56.7%. Man's like QB2, I think. And he's against Philadelphia this week, his former team. Philadelphia has scored a lot of points in this last 2 games, so expect it to be another high-scoring game. But don't forget, Carson Wentz, 650 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. He's averaging about 27.8 points a game. If he's still on your waiver wire and you have not picked him up, that needs to change.
Yeah, I agree with you last week. I agree with you this week. I know he didn't get the win and stuff like that, but he is throwing the ball around to different receivers. Dare I say, he looks a bit better in that Washington Commanders offense. So yeah, definitely a guy. If you need a streamer guy this week, you can pick up off the waiver wires.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm all in on Wentz. I mean, let's be real. Carson Wentz is gonna be the guy I'm gonna name every single week until he's owned.
It's gonna be.
It's gonna be my Hunter Renfrow from last year. Yeah. Who's your guy?
Jared Goff's my guy this week. I mean, he has 6 touchdowns through 2 games, 256 yards, 4 touchdowns in the last game. I mean, I'm not a Goff guy, but the Detroit Lions offense looks a bit more high power. It looks good. It's competitive. Dan Campbell has them going. If you watch Hard Knocks, you'll just see he's great. I'd love to play from. If you haven't watched Hard Knocks, go and watch it. Playing the Vikings next, I think this is going to be a high-powered offense game. I think you'll have Jared Goff slinging it around on one side. You'll have Cousins on the other. Defense is, not the greatest, so it could be another high-scoring game, and they're always good for fantasy football.
Yeah, and it's ironic that you're talking about the Lions because I just got a tweet about the Lions. They've scored 35-plus points in 3 straight regular season games. One game from last season. If you put those 3 games together on the 35-plus, that is the first time since 1952 where they have scored 35-plus points in 3 straight regular season games.
Oh, that's cool.
So something to keep in mind for next weekend's Minnesota.
Yeah.
But again, going back to Jared Goff, I actually do like Jared Goff. I think people gave up on him very quick in Chicago, and then he went to
the Rams,
and then now to the Lions. He's all over the place. Yeah, I like Jared Goff. I think he's solid, and those Lions actually looking really good.
Yeah, I mean, if they can get more solid on defense because they're going to score points. Swift looks great so far. Goff's looked good. Amon-Ra St. Brown, unreal. I know DJ Shark didn't do much this week. I don't think he did that for fancy. I think he got a big donut. But I think there's better weeks ahead. TJ Hawkinson in there. So they've got the weapons on offense. If they can just shore it up a bit on defense, then, yeah, these lines could go far.
Exactly. So our waiver wire quarterbacks are Carson Wentz and Jared Goff. Sebastian coming back in with his starting lineup. Would you rather keep Najee Harris or Aaron Jones? His starting lineup right now is Brady, CMC, Najee Harris, Mike Williams, Bateman, and James Robinson at the flex.
All right, Jones starts all day. All right, Jones should be in there starting.
Yeah.
For me over. Honestly, who's in Najee and who's in there?
Najee Harris and CMC.
Oh, okay. Play Jones in your flex then.
Yeah.
Or switch it around, but Jones has to start for me.
I think so. I'm guessing Aaron. Wait, hold on. So now this is confusing me because
I thought we were trading for CMC a minute ago.
Unless he was trying to trade away Aaron Jones and Pittman, and that's why he didn't put them in the lineup. Maybe, which would make sense.
Maybe they were on the other side. Maybe that's what the offer is again. I don't know. But
maybe
if it's Aaron Jones, anyways, needs to be in that starting lineup.
I like Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, and James Robinson. I'd trade away if you have CMC. I'm trading him away. I'm not in on CMC.
Fernando hates CMC. Please post that everywhere. Fernando is out. Hates CMC. He hasn't said it enough, so I'm just making sure.
So he's saying that would be the trade. That would be after the trade.
Okay. That would be after the trade goes through. Yeah. Well, then.
I want
then if that's after the trade, then I want CMC and Jones starting.
I'll let you win on this. I'll let you win. I know you really want this win here. I'll give you the win. If you really are in on CMC and you think he will be valuable, then yeah, go for it. I mean, I'm not in on CMC. I'd rather have Aaron Jones and Najee Harris. Yeah. So let's be
I'm
real.
Just joking.
Let's be real. So yeah, I'm definitely going with. I'd rather keep Aaron Jones and Najee Harris. Trade away maybe James Robinson or get a better receiver. In all honesty, because Mike Williams and Bateman, I think, are pretty weak right now in the wide receiver core. Because Bateman, yeah, he's great, but he could be a hit or miss. Because Devin Duvernay. Anyways, let's go on to
Tell me you're running back.
Before we go on to...
we got another? Okay.
We got another Dalvin Cook. Jack O'Donnell coming in.
Nobody likes Dalvin Cook.
I guess nobody likes him. Dalvin Cook for Javonte Williams and Cortland Sutton, half PPR. I have Jonathan Taylor and Javonte as my current running backs, and Mike Williams, CD, and Gabe Davis as my other receivers.
Dalvin Cook for Javonte Williams, and I want Williams and Sutton.
Yeah, I want Williams and Sutton. If you're getting Dalvin Cook, I think you lose this trade. I like Javonte Williams and Cortland Sutton.
I was a big fan of Cortland Sutton. I know you were too, but now Jerry Jeudy is day to day. Cortland Sutton, I think he could be great now for the rest of the weeks.
Especially if Sutton is on your team. I mean, Sutton goes over Gabe Davis 100%. So CD, Mike Williams, Cortland Sutton, and then Javonte and JT. You should be 2-0.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's the Williams and Sutton side.
2-0. All right, so let's go on to our running backs. As I mentioned, Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, our waiver wire quarterbacks. It's time for our waiver wire running backs. And Keith, we will start with your waiver wire running back. So you're going to get most of your running backs.
Yeah, Raheem Mostert. There you go, Pun City again. So yeah, Raheem Mostert. I mean, It looked like he was on the field a lot last weekend, but he was only had 3 more snaps than Chase Edmonds. But then again, when you broke down the carries, it was 11-5. So I don't know if Edmonds is going back and Mostert's going up, but we have seen Mostert in the past be very good when he's healthy for the 49ers. He has the potential to, just to break off a big run and get you, 5, 6, 7, 8 points in one run. And that kind of sets the baseline for your running backs that week. Now over with the Dolphins, all right, they're probably going to, swap and change, and Edmonds probably come more the pass catching guy. But if Mostert is fit and healthy, I think he's a very solid RB3 and a guy that if you get off the waivers, you can slot in and bye weeks. If someone goes down, a running back goes down, injured in your team, I would have no problem putting him in because I think he'll get the workload, and once he stays fit, he is solid.
Yeah, I mean, Chase Edmonds, he only had about 5 attempts and 51% snap percentage. And then you look at Raheem Mostert, he had 55% snap percentage and then 11 attempts. Honestly, I like Raheem Mostert a lot more, and his yards per carry is really good. He's got 4.64 last game on yards per carry, scoring about 10 fantasy points. So honestly, I like Raheem Mostert. But I'm going to be honest, looking at the waiver wire this week for you, Keith, was it hard for you to pick a running back? Because it seemed to me that it was so hard to find a decent running back that was in waivers.
There was none. I couldn't really find anyone that might have that kind of upside. That's what I was looking for. And that's when I seen Mostert and what I thought. And he's only, over 52% owned in most leagues. And, we're looking at ESPN. I was looking for a guy that might have that potential big playability. And Mostert does have that when he's fit and healthy. But yeah, I was struggling to find a guy that I thought, that could actually make an improvement if you had to put him in now to somebody's team.
Yeah, it was just so hard. I mean, I will go on to my running back, who is another one that is a waiver wire out of the week and who's also 30 years old, same as Raheem Mostert, is Jerick McKinnon. So Jerick McKinnon, the reason why I'm picking him as my waiver wire running back is he's a backup to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And we've seen what Clyde Edwards-Helaire has done in the past couple seasons. He struggled, and who knows if he continues to possibly struggle here and there, you might see McKinnon kind of get more and more of the snap percentage. We saw an uptick in snap percentage last week with Jerick McKinnon. He had 39% in week 1, 47 last week, and he's been around 7, 8 fantasy points each week. And I mean, I think last week in week 1, we kind of saw Isaiah Pacheco come in and really do great. And we thought, oh, he's the RB2 in that team. But Jerick McKinnon just comes in this week and kind of takes a lot more percentage to Pacheco's 9% snap percentage. So, and not to mention, McKinnon had 47% this week, Pacheco 9%, CEH only 44%. So McKinnon was on the field more than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So something to keep in mind.
It's interesting because Clyde is definitely the starter, but they mix in the other guys a lot. And I suppose it depends how far they go ahead as well. As we see in week 1, Pacheco was the guy. But I think Pacheco is the RB3 for the Chiefs. McKinnon is definitely the backup to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's probably a guy that's not going to do a whole lot for you initially. You'd probably want Clyde to go down or, Clyde not to look as good as he has probably in the last couple of games. If Clyde's form of last year pops up again, then McKinnon, I think, will get more involved. So he's probably a guy that you'd stash on your bench and see what happens.
Yeah, 100%. So our 2 running backs is Jerick McKinnon and Raheem Mostert for our waiver wire ads of the week for the running backs. Going on to our wide receivers. And Keith, we mentioned your guy a lot today. Who is your guy?
So my guy is a Patriots, one of your guys, Jacoby Myers, 13 targets, 9 receptions, 95 yards this week. I mean, the only thing that's missing from that stat line is a touchdown. And that's probably his big downfall. But the only thing is Mac Jones got back into rhythm last week against the Steelers. I mean, wasn't a great game to watch, but what I meant earlier by it was a Patriots game. It was run heavy. It was the short down, move the sticks, throws, and they all went to Jacoby Myers. He's seen a lot. He got over 18 fantasy points. I mean, this guy is valuable as a flex. I think he has a solid baseline of about 11, 12, 13 points, weekly. I think he got around 10 or 11 week 1. I think that's probably his baseline. His upside is capped because he doesn't score touchdowns. So the 18 points this week could be his ceiling, but I think he's a solid guy. If you want someone in there as your flex, that's just going to give you a base of 10, 11, 12, 13 points a week. He's your guy. And I think he's a good guy to get off the waivers.
Exactly. I mean, I kind of touched on the Patriots receivers. I'm concerned about the receivers there because you just don't know what's going to happen with them. I mean, this week, of course, we saw Myers do really good. We also saw Nelson Aguilar. We saw Hunter Henry score a fat donut. I mean, it's just something crazy that you just don't know what's going to happen in that Patriots offense. But keep in mind, Jacoby Myers, I'd like to stream him because he had 13 targets this week. We like to see targets for receivers or anyone in general and see if that's consistent because week 1 he only had 6 targets. If his 13 targets start to be more consistent, then I think Jacoby Myers is going to be a safe option to pick up. But if he isn't picked up, he will start to get picked up this week.
Yeah, I mean, if you're shooting for upside, he's not your guy, right? But if it's a solid floor you're looking for, Jacoby, I think you're safe with Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, and I mean, are you picking him over Nelson Aguilar and every single other receiver there?
Because Nelson Aguilar is completely boom or bust. I mean, the touchdown he caught was just, it looked like the cornerback was all over it and he just out-jumped him and got in, but he's not going to do that every week.
No. So 13 targets, 9 receptions. Keep in mind, 95 yards. Something to keep in mind for Myers. My wide receiver is going to be there in Washington in Dot City. Jahan Dotson. The man's been getting a lot of dots, dimes, anything you could throw to him, he's catching. Dotson, Curtis Samuel, and Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin has looked the least popular wide receiver there in the Commanders' offense. But Dotson, I'm liking Dotson because he's a sneaky value because in the show, we've seen so many questions about Curtis Samuel. So a lot of people are going to value him a lot more. Curtis Samuel is more percentage owned than Jahan Dotson. So I'm liking Dotson over Curtis Samuel, only because based on the value, you can get Dotson a lot cheaper than Curtis Samuel right now.
Yeah, and we've seen with Dotson and Wentz, they've had the connection, from there was all the talk in the offseason that they were getting on the same page, and it's shown now. I like the talent coming out of college too. Wasn't really too sure on the landing spot. Just, Terry is the number one guy there, but I suppose they did need someone on the other side. But if he keeps it up, who knows what happens with Terry? I know they paid him and all that, but Dotson and Curtis look good. I'm sure Scary Terry will get will get all his touches he needs and be good. The only thing going forward, what you will have to worry about with Dotson is Wentz throwing the ball around. He won't just focus in on one target. It is going to be Scary Terry. He's going to have his days. Curtis Samuel's going to have his. So there might be a bit of, boom or bust, highs and lows, but I think he's a good pickup as of now.
He's a good red zone target too because of the fact he scored 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games.
Yep, for sure.
Something to keep in mind. So anyways, Jahan Dotson and Jacoby Myers are wide receiver options. Now it's kind of time to finish this segment off with the waiver wire tight ends. Let's go to Cincinnati for some heyday. Who's your guy?
Hayden Hurst, 7 targets, 5 receptions. Not a whole lot of yards, 24, but as you said previously, it's about targets. The way the Bengals are playing at the moment, it's from behind in the 2 games. So there's going to be a lot of throwing, a lot of targets. I like Hayden Hurst. I've always have. Thought he's a good tight end. I mean, he's a solid streamer this week because they're playing the Jets. Everybody's going, oh, the Jets. But if we look at the Jets of last week, it's going to be a good game. They're going to put it up to them. And if people remember rightly, the Jets actually bet the Bengals last year. It was one of the bad games. It was a high-scoring game again. So hopefully it's another high-scoring game. You can stream Hayden Hurst. I think you'll feel confident you'll get between 7 and 10 points. He got 7.4 this week. And if he gets a touchdown on the end of that, then, you're happy. So I think he's a good streamer.
Yeah, he's been getting targeted a lot. 8 targets in his first game, 7 targets last game. If he keeps up with the targets, I mean, he's something that you can keep in mind for possibly picking up tight ends because tight ends have been interesting this year with a lot of them that we'd expect in the top 10 being outside the top 10. Like Kyle Pitts, I think he's tight end like 25 right now or something along those lines.
Yeah. Cole Kmet as well, guy that probably was in my top 10 way outside. Yeah. And tight end always, you're always, if you're streaming, you're looking to find that one guy that you can just play for the rest of the season. So it could be Hayden Hurst, who knows? So it's just going to be interesting as the weeks go by. It usually dries up pretty quick in the tight end pool.
Yeah, burst for Hurst. Get Hayden Hurst in your waiver wires. Last but not least, Gerald Everett. I mentioned last week. Why is he not over 70% owned? This is a problem. People are maybe scared of Gerald Everett because we haven't really seen much of him in the past with Seattle. But we know the Chargers. We know the Chargers will continually throw to the tight ends if they're good. And I mean, we've seen that with Antonio Gates, Hunter Henry. I mean, Gerald Everett, 30.7% owned. He's a tight end 4 right now. Tight end 4. He's going against Jacksonville, which is a really good matchup for tight ends. Week 1, he had 14.4 points. Last week, he had 13.1 points. That's really good for tight ends. If you're over double digits, just over, it's pretty standard. But if you're over 12 points, 13 points for tight ends, that's really good. Those 3 points really matter in the tight end world for waivers. Last week, 10 targets, 6 receptions, 71 yards. He's a must start.
Yeah, big fan of Gerald Everett. Not sure why he's not owned more. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see an uptick after this week's waivers go through. Maybe people are afraid that Keenan Allen comes back and he takes a lot of them targets off him, but I still think it's a high-powered offense once Justin Herbert's fit and healthy, which I think he'll be out there regardless, kind of knowing the way he is and his attitude. I think he's going to be out there. He need to do some serious damage that he wouldn't be able to compete on the weekend. So I think he'll be out there. High-powered offense. Gerald Everett's safe. I think he's locked in for 5-6 targets every week.
Yeah, I mean, Gerald Everett, even if Keenan Allen comes back, I mean, I still expect Gerald Everett to continue to stay in that offense.
Oh, yeah, I think so. And he's a good red zone target, as we've seen week 1 for Herbert.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to do it here for our tight ends, Gerald Everett and Hayden Hurst being our guys of the week for tight ends. Once again, that is going to do it here in today's episode. A lot to talk about. Many players talked about injuries, everything like that. Again, make sure to come on every Tuesday here on YouTube, Spotify, anything like that. Anything you plan on listening with us on, make sure to follow us on social media at SportsTime HQ. Make sure to follow Keith all over social media, co-host at SwampDonkey_90. Make sure to follow him, his fiance, on Instagram at HuddleUp_NFL. Once again, if you don't use Underdog Fantasy, be sure to use Underdog Fantasy. They'll match your first deposit of up to $100 if you use code SportsTimeHQ. If you did some picks this week, Quez Watkins, you picked the higher on him. KJ Osborne, you picked low. Ryan Tannehill, you picked low. Derrick Henry, you picked lower than rushing yards, receiving yards. And then Alexander Madison, if you picked lower than rushing yards on him, you would have won some good money because they all hit there. So once again, make sure to use code SportsTimeHQ on Underdog Fantasy. They'll match your first deposit of up to $100. Get a free $100. Once again, this is SportsTime HQ. We will see you next Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, where Keith and I will continue to talk waivers.